Hey folks, Alex from Design Builder team here, back with a tutorial on how to use the child selectors to create beautiful hover effects. In this video we will learn how to make these animations right here. As you can see, when I hover over these images, the text animates from outside the container and the arrow turns white. Please note that this feature is unique to Design Builder and you will not find it elsewhere. You have total freedom to create any hover animations you want with the child selector options. Now, where can I find the child selector options for this hover effect? Usually it's on the parent of the animated child's element, so if you edit the column that wraps the child element with a double click, then click the styling tab and press this little icon, you will see the child selector. These selectors here contain the hover styles for these child elements. If you click the wrapper, you will open the wrapper styles. If you click the selectors, you will open the selector styles from the active state, which can be changed from here. Okay, so now let's see how we can build these hover effects from scratch. Click the blue plus icon and add a section with one column. I will adjust the inner content width to match the above width. Then I will change the column width to 1/4 and copy paste the column 2 times. I will add another column inside the first column just to have the left and right gap. Resize the section as per layout. Now let's add a background image in the first column. Set the background size to cover and adjust the vertical and horizontal position from the white dot. If you want to darken the image a bit, you can add a new background gradient. Adjust the colors and transparency and then gradient angle. This will increase the contrast between our image and the text that we will add. Now let's add the text. I could add the text directly in this column with the image, but I want to animate all the text strings at once, so I should add another column. This way all the text inside the column will move with the animated column. I will set a max height for it. Then edit the image column and set the vertical alignment to bottom. Let's add a text element. Let's add a heading element. Now let's change the default text because it's too long. To change the colors, go to the element styles under typography. For the description, I will clone the first text and move it under the headline. What I want to do right now is to create a design for how the elements will animate on hover, so I will use Design Builder's Child Selector's unique feature to hide the elements that I don't want to show at first, then bring them back in their initial position. Let's also add this arrow. To make some space for it, I will resize the column width to 80%, then add an icon element under the column that contains the text. I will then use Position Absolute to position it where I want. Alright, this looks good. Now let's style it a bit. Since the icons are inserted as a font, you can change the color and size of the icon from the font options. There are also options to change the size and color in the General tab, but since I want to animate the icons on hover, I must use the styles from the Styling tab. Let's darken the background gradient a bit more. Let's adjust the heading as well since it's too big. And the text element. Okay, they look almost the same. Now let's move on to the fun part. When using the child selectors, I must refer to them through a class name. So I will add a class name for the column that contains the text. I will name this class Hide Caption. Then edit the parent wrapper and let's add our first child selector. For the selector name, you can give it any name you want, but under the CSS selector, you have to enter the hide caption class that we just created. Only that this time, be sure to enter it with a dot in front of it. This is important, otherwise the animation will not work. I will leave the state as default because I want to move the caption down a bit, just to hide the description. Now I will add the child selector in the same way as before, only that this time I will select the hover state and animate the column back to its initial position. Alright, things are starting to take shape. The problem that I see now is that I've added a bottom margin under the heading and I must remove it on hover. So how do I do that? I would add another class to the heading element, then make an Unhover child selector for the heading element and set the bottom margin to 0. Let's edit the heading element. Go to styling. I will name the class like this. Bring title down. Now let's add this class to the parent as a child selector and set the active state to hover. Set the margin bottom to 0. And now I need to bring the hide caption class with the hover state a bit lower. Great! To make the transition smooth, we need to add a transition duration between the default state and the hover state of each animated element. The transition duration must be added to the default state, not to the hover state. Go to the hide caption class and add a transition duration of 300 milliseconds. Now the transition is smooth. Now I will do the same thing for the heading elements. See how the animation is linear? We can improve this even more by selecting the timing function to ease in out. Let's also change it for the hide caption class. This already looks much better. Now let's also animate the arrow. Remember how I said that we need a class name for each child selector? I will now use this class here because it already refers to this icon. So I will copy and paste it as a child selector in the parent column. Set the state to hover. Now I have to change the background color to white and the arrow to black. The problem here is that this background is for the icon and I've set the border radius on the wrapper but not the icon. So I need to go back to the icon styles and add a class on the wrapper. I will call it icon background. Now also add it as a child selector and change the background color to white. Beautiful! Now we should also add a transition duration for the arrow, and our hover effect is almost finished. I said almost because we will have to animate the background image as well. edit the image column wrapper, and here we want to make that zoom effect. Since the animation will be triggered on the same element that we hover on, we will not use the child selector. That is because the animation takes place on the parent element and not on the child element. Try to memorize the settings for the background image and keep them the same for the hover states. Only change the settings that you want to animate on hover. I will add the transition duration now so I can see better how the animation works. This effect looks interesting, but I would also like the zoom effect. To do this, I should be able to scale the image somehow. I can only do this if instead of cover, I choose the custom option. Now I can resize the image using percentages. So I will set the height to 100% and the hover to 110%. You can play with the position to obtain all kinds of effects. Lovely. The only thing remaining is to add a link for the entire column. Let's preview how it looks. Impressive, right? Now clone the column 2 times and change the images. Adjust the height percentage where it needs to be adjusted. This wraps up our today's tutorial on Design Builder's Child Selectors. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos like this one, hit that bell icon to get notified when we post a new video, and don't forget to smash that like button. See you in the next video. Alex from Design Builder team out.